Good evening and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. You have my full 100% attention, and I'm going to be able to do more now that I have access to Blog Talk Radio, and we're getting warmed up. The topics we're going to hit on are important for those people who really need that validation. One of the things about the topic on child sexual abuse and the issues around it is that a lot of false guilt and sometimes survivor guilt, and we're going to touch about that and topics like that because I understand one of the most complicated stories about child abuse is what's going on before and after, and especially the issue on suicide. People who come out who've been abused, who often don't get validated by law enforcement or caseworkers, or oftentimes what happens to a victim is their experience, they become re-victimized. And one of the hardest things about surviving it, or anywhere like where legitimate newspapers that you know of today, we often refer to them as the larger media. When they disavow or distance themselves, it's usually based on not their area, first of all. Number two, a lot of times they don't want anything to do with it. They don't know anybody that personally, and if they do, they weren't aware of it. So right out of the gate, there's a lot of things we got to qualify. We want to disqualify those people because we obviously know that's not their area, and personally, that's why you have specialized child forensic abuse, in this case, child abuse forensic investigators, okay? And that's why you have child advocates that are legitimately doing the work that most people can't or won't do, okay? So in a courtroom setting, when the victim is brought in, they know that they go into chambers, okay? Or by today's standards, it's far different. They bring them into the victim's room. Nonetheless, when a child abuse victim or survivor endures abuse, they act out a lot. And a lot of times the family and relatives, whether it's supportive or not, don't understand the issues that come from it. Because when a victim comes out, their lives are changed by it. And that's why we always say, before they're ready to ever come forward, they have to do some things like, to me, it's a process, okay? But for the victim, it's just survival. They just want to get as far away from it, or they don't want their lives to be forever changed by it. But they didn't ask for this. And as a victim or a survivor, they often deal with the problems that come with abuse. So when you're around somebody that's been abused, where it gets really complicated, and it's very complicated, is that oftentimes what happens with victims is that they grew up around it and they become they've created a relationship with these people, okay, your abusers. And that's what makes these cases so hard to argue, because they are emotionally attached to the abusers. And I have to share personally about this story about a man who I'm related to, actually. And the man that sexually abused him, continually sexually abused him, it was incredible. Even after years of not talking to his abuser, he had the ability to bring him into like a fetal state of mind. And it really was hard, because most of the problems that came after the visits or meetings, on a regular basis, I had to restrain him. I had to go through a lot to get him to the place where, he was, under control, and he would start crying. It was really hard to endure. And thinking that you can rescue somebody and fix somebody's problems, that is not what anyone needs to be. They don't need to be this way. But in some cases, when you're dealing with severe childhood abuse, trauma, guns put to the head, fish in the mailbox. We're talking about years and years of child abuse, sexual abuse. And I don't deny that these victims have been victimized, and they still in some ways feel victimized. Because when you hear investigators or large groups that don't respond back or validate it, what it means is that their story doesn't corroborate, and that's very confusing to a victim. So there's a lot of things that go on in the court system that understand the issues that the public might not, okay? So we can make the case. There are some things that the public is not aware of. And it's done in such a way for the safety of the victims, okay? Security reasons, other things, okay? But when the victim's comfortable and they're put in a safe place, and I'm not talking about the safe place that you guys are often referred to about snowflakes. I hope that we don't get this confused, because this is a court system where they deal with these type of victims and survivors. Now, do I think that there are problems in the justice system? Absolutely. Cases that have not followed through? Absolutely. But that depends on the case. That depends on the victim and the families, or the people involved in the support network. There's a lot of factors involved. So we can illustrate that every case is different. Not every person has the same story. Last April, dealing with a child abuse survivor. She was a child pornography victim. Now, she was gang raped several times by her abusers, including her own mother, which her mother would push her down on the bed and they would perform all the acts and then film it. I'm stating this because, at least for the most part, this part of the story is told. Okay, that validates that victim, and victims were raped in situations where no one could ever speak about this. Okay, I didn't hear the word rape come up on a regular basis. You will hear that word come up on a regular basis, though, when you hear about what a victim endures, what they survive, the nightmares, the bathroom problems, on and on. Now, we've seen news reports, and if I can recall reading some of the news reports going back to 2010. 2010, I was thinking to myself, we all kind of personalize a lot of this stuff, and that's the problem a lot of us ended up doing, which is no help to the victim. Okay, when we internalize this, what happens is we're not really there. We're emotional, and how can you not get emotional when you deal with somebody who's been through this ordeal? And that's the other side of it. And there are a lot of people that innocently get hurt that did it, and that's usually sometimes the neighbors, the close friends and family, and other things like that. And I look at that as sometimes, depending on how much you've been through, in my case, you become a secondary victim. Not because you were directly abused, but because you've been around it, or you've lived with it, or you lived with a mother or father that was child abuse victims, or you lived with sisters and brothers that were assaulted or sexually abused. There's PTSD. So there's a lot of things they can't do, or the family can't do, or work at whatever capacity. And that's why we offer a way to fundraise, because here's the reason we have to fundraise, is that we have to be independent. We cannot accept money from certain individuals, organizations, because of the victims. Okay? We have to purely donate it. It has to be purely donated by the people who willingly give. Okay? It cannot be from organizations attached or associated with what the victims have endured. And most of the things that you're seeing today, I mean, we completely removed everything. We're completely sterilized ourselves from TV, cable news, everything. I mean, that's the only environment the victim won't understand, but they totally get what's going on. It's underground, to be honest with you, because by today's standards, everyone has the internet, everybody has a computer, and we do not. We don't have any of those things. We're completely different from what you will find. The only thing that we do technologically is we use the YouTube, and we use Blog Talk Radio. Everything else, there's no cable, there's no TV, there's nothing here. It's completely bland here, and it's boring to that person, but what it is for the victim is we're completely removed from outside influences. And the reason we do is because victims have been abused. There's certain music, there's certain tones, there's certain things that they can associate their abuse with. So we implemented another option is PTSD clinic. This is done in home-based therapy. And I mean, when I say home-based therapy, We go through different things and how to take care of yourself, how to, take naps and get on a schedule and learn life skills, okay? And these are things that I know that we emphasize, like learning to cook, learning to do for yourself, going back to independent living, transitional services, on and on. And there are programs that network with these programs, but we are different because we are removed from a lot of the stuff that you hear about. You won't see us having a TV or any of those things, and there's a special reason for that. We can turn on the cable and TV, but the reason why is because a lot of the victims, there's complete, absolute far removed from all those outside forces, outside of that. Now, if they want to get into a, women's program or a men's program right now, where now they can be introduced to transitional program for housing, and they got victims compensation and things like that. There's resources there that we know about, and we have notebooks and files where you go from one program to another. And a lot of programs today are safe houses or programs that help people get an exit strategy or exit plan. And there are a lot of great video and audios that I would recommend for life-changing recovery. Books, everything. And we got books and books of survival and grief counseling, because there's a level of grief counseling that some people who've been through this. They're child abuse survivors and they've endured something, and it takes years. Without the real commitment of a program that is doing it in the long-term sense. We have to be at this at the long term. We have to be here. We cannot move around. We have to be in one spot to really get grounded in what we're trying to do. So paying the rent here is huge. This is a grassroots effort on your part and on the part of those around us. And the reason we got to keep a roof over our head right now is because we advocates and survivor group advocates, peer support counselors, specialists, there has to be a place where you can go, where you can land your feet. Because one of the things is every day you have to be able to land your feet. And a lot of times these people are used to having their lives, they're very independent. In fact, because they've been abused, they're extremely independent. They're not used to rules, okay? So it's not as restrictive, the rules, they have safety, and they have programs where they can start out at. Women's shelters offer that kind of, some of that assistance too, here in Western Pennsylvania especially, and into Ohio. So these programs have ways to help people. We're a step down program. We are after they've gone through the women's program or men's programs or recovery programs, because there's a lot of them there that don't deal specifically with the issues, but they just help you with the initial housing, the initial transition. And that being said, transition is one thing, and then the extension program, which is the wraparound program. These are the programs that work with the victims on an ongoing basis, meaning you establish a relationship where we need advocates. We need advocates who will meet with the families and the victims, whether it be at a hotel and this is at a social work capacity, because you're dealing with people who might have some medical problems as a result of the assaults. So social workers and people that work in that capacity go and meet with the victims and families. This is just as we phase out the initial programs, because a lot of times these people go back to their lives, and all we do is just check up on them, make sure that they have their needs met, they get gas cards if they need it, have cell phone service, any little things that we can provide. Now, if we can't provide that, then all we can really do is just be there as an outside support, and that's really all peer support specialists can do. Is that we don't have a budget where we have enough money to meet with the victims on a regular basis, but we can update their case. We can keep up with just keep up with their progress, and we have to be committed. If we're not committed or somebody's not committed, what happens? They kind of drift back into some things. And our target for any program like this, a wraparound program, means as a resource center or a program that's central to what's going on. We're just a liaison. We're really not making we're not doing big things, but we're doing things that cause a ripple effect. And what I mean is, if you ever heard of the story where you put a penny in the pond and it makes a ripple effect and the little boy's watching it and it ripples away. We might only be there to hold the little kids' hands, you know? I mean, there's some things that are so huge. You would be touched by the stories that have happened, the songs we sing, and, just going out to dinner, it was a big deal for us to go out to dinner, to Burger King. Other things that are fun, little trips, outings, going, I don't know, there were just so many little adventures that we've been on already that we haven't really fully experienced life yet, And I'm happy to say that our person that was a victim is now a new mom. And this is very exciting because her kids are such cute kids. And she's a beautiful woman, by the way. She has a lot of boyfriends, and it's just really a sweet story about what girls and many people who work with victims, that their lives can turn around. There is hope. I mean, it's very hard to accept what happened to you. It's very hard to accept that somebody's ever hurt you this way. And I think I get pretty emotional when I realize what so many of us have missed out on as secondary victims, watching somebody endure this or live through something. And it's like you never really get to see all the things that they've been able to accomplish. But my hope is that they accomplished it and they lived it. And we have a lot of theater. We do a lot of theater. So we kind of, role play, and it's fun. And we have friends and family that are just kind people that love to do theater and make them laugh. And there's a lot to sort out when you think about what someone's might have lived through. And the idea is to stay together, to work together. Don't lose touch of each other. Keep in touch. Make sure you keep each other. Just make yourself known. I know I'm only one person, so I can't do it all. But family advocacy, it's a very hard topic. And when I look at advocates, individual advocates who are on the internet, like 4chan and all these other programs, I'm so excited about what you're doing. I'm so proud of what you're doing. I'm excited about, I get it like jump in my spirit when I see Honeybee, because I know what Honeybee is doing is absolutely amazing, and I'm proud of her, and she's accomplished so much already in just a short amount of time. So let's go and talk about the Court of Public Opinion, Judge Barbie for 2018, because right now that's a safe thing for us. And I like Judge Barbie for a lot of reasons, because Judge Barbie is going to hit on topics, and I've been working at this little by little. It's a very big, courageous step to be Judge Barbie. And Judge Barbie is a real Barbie doll, and Judge Barbie addresses issues, and so does Judge Ken. And we judge a lot of the stuff that is going on and helping kids talk and open up with family and parents about problems out there, especially because of the epidemic of suicide. And the numbers are increasingly higher with child abuse and also associated with suicide, especially for victims. This is an ongoing concern. So we're very sensitive to what's going on, and creating this kind of platform. And it's always existed, but I think for a lot of new victims or young kids that haven't really understood, they're little kids who, we deal with all types of issues. Play therapy is huge. This is a portion of what we're doing is called play therapy. It's done under the supervision of licensed master social work child sexual abuse experts. So obviously the work that is being done at that capacity, from the time they enter the hospital to the initial reports to actually working one-on-one with a counselor, it is significant. And once they've reached that point where they've gotten to a place where they are place with they have the proper intake and proper care. Most of the time, the child therapist, that is just the beginning of this journey of healing, and the books and the recovery groups that come with it. And like I said, it's a wraparound program, so we're covering a lot of bases. When I say, home-based therapy, we're seriously talking about first, second, third, fourth base, and we're talking about each base is covered. Like for home plate, of course, is making sure we're focused and doing Gestalt therapy, because it's all about grounding. And if you know anything about EMDR and how it's implemented and how the therapists work with them, it's really important that we get them to the point where they can start dealing with not just the superficial issues, but the actual issues that dig a little deeper. And that process is done through a few options. Like, my personal opinion is, if somebody's been a victim and survivor of child pornography abuse, they're immediately processed with the therapist in the intake. And oftentimes with options in housing, this is the other option. And that has been my experience. We've gone through night court, we've gone through family court, but this court of public opinion is a 24/7 program. We want to be here for the victim 24/7. Whether we are available is a different story, because we actually sleep and eat too. And we need naps, and we need to take care of ourselves on a regular basis. But the Court of Public Opinion is open 24/7, especially at night, especially because that seems to be the big time for victims who want to discuss things. So we open up the chat wing. And I don't often do it anymore, okay? I look at it this way. If you want to open up, you'll find the right people. We're here, okay? Now, as far as keeping rent and bills paid, that's why we have a Patreon site. Do I have a BitChute page? No, I don't. Like I said earlier, we do not have computers. I got rid of them, okay? When I came across some, pornography in 2010, I got rid of computers. I'll rent them from Rent-A-Center when I need them, but on a regular basis, I do not have them, okay? Because of the extent of where the abuse is from. And we do tighten this, we're very much tightening this noose around this problem, because I look at it this way. We cannot have any of this trafficking or anything to do with it, completely sterilize ourselves from it. And that includes monitoring and watching the videos, monitoring and looking for the things how to train somebody, what to look for, monitoring. This is pretty extensive. So we going through a lot of things I could not cover here, okay? And I wouldn't want to cover all of it, because there's so much that needs to be touched on that we wouldn't get a lot of sleep. And we really like our sleep. And if you know anything about advocacy, the good thing is we're on Main Street, okay? And I had to go through a lot of approvals to get licensed here in Pennsylvania. And we're still going through a lot more. And right now, as it stands, some of our biggest advocacy work that we're doing right now is HR 951. And if you've heard about it, that is the first project, is to remove any restrictions from child abuse victims so that they can sue their perpetrator. And there's guidelines, of course. They have to be convicted. They have to go on through this process. And right now, working with, hopefully very soon, I've been in touch with them. I haven't gotten as far as, this is where it gets into a lot of legalistic work, but getting in touch with the actual advocates that work on these cases. And they would take our case. They will take our case if we can get this window legislation out of legislation and get, when they go back into session here in Pennsylvania, that this HR 951 will go through, okay? I have a feeling at this point it looks very good. And what that will do is that'll open up the doors for victims who were abused when they were little, going back 50 years. And I would like to see that. I would like to see that legislation not just be extended to 50, but there would be no limits on how the victims can sue. Because a lot of times the victims have been abused and they never went to court. They never had their day in court, and this might be their only opportunity to get their day in court. And their day in court is legitimately important. They need that validation and you need to be validated as a victim that yes, this did happen to you, but you can move forward. You can live again. Now, is there threats? That's been what we've learned. We've learned about the threatening behavior. We've learned about some of the problems that came with it. And my concern is that we work together with advocates. This is why you stay together. The advocates even more so, because we got to give each other some time out. We all need relief. We all need our timeouts, and we all need some sleep. And I promise you, for the advocate, to land your feet, get some rest, eat, take a break, take 5 breaks, but make sure when you're focused that you know, and sometimes, like all of us, when we're into research, we need to put a timer on. Because I don't know about you, but I could do research for 12 hours a day, and God knows how much time goes by. But we give each other a night off. Tonight is a beautiful night, so this is a perfect night to, unwind and relax. And, we like to have a strong cup of coffee once in a while. But this is the training videos and all the videos I've been getting from a friend of mine whose dad is a therapist. It has profoundly helped me. Even somebody who's not directly been abused by a predator, it's helped me. So everybody benefits. That's the awesome thing about therapy is everybody benefits from the counseling. Especially if you're a family member or somebody that's concerned, you benefit with the counseling and therapy and the artwork and art therapy. And I think it's just a profound way where everybody can get involved. That's why we do the theater part for fun, okay? Radio theater's fun. But these are creative ways where if on your off time, if you're not in counseling, I would recommend do the counseling first. That is the significant thing. If you do the counseling and we can vet the therapists, and we have a pretty good network of people I respect. One person is Gail Haig. She has been in private practice in North Hills. She worked with Family Resources, which if you know anything about Family Resources, do your homework. Family Resources is one of those great programs where, we've worked with people who've been in this field for 40 years. And Gail Haig is expensive, well worth every penny, because we spent the big money to go there. EMDR in Squirrel Hill, here in Pittsburgh. If you're familiar with Squirrel Hill, there's a good expert EMDR specialist there, and near Mercy Hospital and also Shadyside in that area. So Northern Communities in North Hills, we've worked with them. North Hills Community Outreach, they help with additional needs. If you have to find an apartment in the area and get into counseling, North Hills Community Outreach is one of the other programs. Other outreach programs that we've worked with is LCAP in Lawrence County. Now, if you're in Lawrence County, that they cover that area. Beaver County here, we're one of the liaison programs, but I'm really not, as of right now, I don't have the licensing yet. So we would have to turn them over to other agencies that deal specifically with this. And I have worked with Voice in Cranberry. We've also worked with Washington County Women's Shelter. There are several networks that here just in Western Pennsylvania and in Ohio, which if you're networked with these programs, or you could talk to somebody that might know somebody that knows somebody, it's kind of how it works, okay? But these are some of the programs I've worked with that they may not deal specifically, but they always can point you in the right direction. Child abuse survivors, it's a long, big we unravel a lot of things. So safety is a big issue, and there are safe houses, which I will not mention, okay? There are programs I cannot mention by name, okay? And for the obvious safety issues, okay? But these programs are not public, okay? And the reason being is for the very reason that the victims, depending on their cases, those programs cannot be identified, okay? But a lot of the programs that you hear about that you can look up on the internet, yes, you can look them up. The women's shelter programs, initially, those are a lot of programs that do help families cope, and a lot of times they have support group and things like that. So we don't want this to be an issue that we hide from, though, okay? I know that these programs, they are changing the way they look at family advocacy and abuse, because by today's standards, it can happen to men, women, and children. And it can happen to anybody at different age, sex, and creed, and religion. So, yeah, the definition for family advocacy has changed. The way we look at child abuse, to sexual abuse, to survivors, to all types of things. And I've had the experience, and I feel very fortunate to have even met a Holocaust survivor. So, it's incredible. This journey has been incredible, and I think a lot of you know that you're on the same journey as I've been on. I'm very proud of all of you. I'm so proud. I've been going through this since 1985, and I look at some of you. You really inspire me so much. I'm so, if I only knew how proud I am of the hard work, and I know the time you put into this. So I hope by doing this demonstration, or what we do with the Court of Public Opinion and Judge Barbie, is one way to help facilitate maybe even, making outfits for Judge Barbie. But Judge Barbie is really important because she helps kids talk and open up, and same with Judge Ken doll. And we have a couple other dolls, and they get to name their dolls, and it would be really nice if we can get churches to help make the dolls, because I'm not that crafty, but I'm crafty, but I don't have always the time to invest in it. But yeah, we like the projects, the clay, being able to doodle, color, all these things. These are things that are fun to do. And so we have a lot of art supplies and things like that where people can actually have fun. We also have other ways to raise money, where I hope we could get to Color Me Mine. If anybody has ever done pottery, we do that. We get ice cream cakes. So, there's nothing there's a lot of things on our bucket list of things we like, okay? Ice cream cake and, anything that, I don't know. But these are things we like to do, that while we raise the money, it's not just going to therapy, it's getting ice cream at the ice cream store, and just having time out to do those things. So, and those are the things that make life rich, is that you get to live again. And for a victim to live again, that is something, I don't know. They get to live and have fun again. And they don't know what fun is. To go get an ice cream cone and just have an ice cream cone, that's nice, It's just, families been through so much that they have to know how to have fun again. And, surviving and enduring a hardship, it doesn't have to be like this. Life doesn't have to be so hard, but we know it has been. So we can't overlook that. But at the same time, what we can do is work together and learn to laugh and make friendships and build those relationships. That's what the wraparound program's for. So that's why I love what we're doing, and I'm grateful to those people who work closely, because I'm touched by the hard work you're doing. As somebody who's been a secondary victim, it is painful for me to have watched and witnessed my family or friends that have been abused. It's been a way of life for some of us. So some of us as secondary victims, we can't do the work that Honeybee can do, or we can't do the work that sometimes other people can do, but I'm touched by it. I'm moved by it personally. And I'm proud, and I'm excited, and I see so many things opening up to people that you've never seen about therapy, about dance movement, recovery, things that happen, especially if somebody's been crippled by abuse. That's one of the biggies. And I look forward to that day coming very soon, that we're going to meet some of you. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be very soon. And we have hotel arrangements, things like that. We're not that far from the airport, and luckily we're working on getting a car fixed. So, and that's compliments to somebody who was a child abuse survivor, who's paid the expenses. And I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of him. He's really stepped up to the plate. A lot of survivors have stepped up to the plate and are paying the bills here, and they're keeping this program alive, and it's because of their support. So we're asking you to join in, help the survivors, the peer support counselors, because they are the ones that are helping. They're doing the hard work. The survivors are going to counseling. They are part of it. They're even therapists nowadays. So, that's astounding for somebody who's ever been around somebody that's a survivor who's turned their lives around and become counselors themselves. They're fascinating people. Dynamic is, they're dynamic. And I would say we were even told we were enigmas, so we'll take it. But they're fascinating and dynamic and diverse, and I love it. And you see a side of them when they come to life. It's just amazing. That's why we want a positive environment where, you have duties at the office, you have coffee. We need you guys to go pick up a couple cans of coffee, because we have a couple other projects ahead at the farmers market, some other things. So we're always trying to get something or get out there and raise money or do things. And because we have a new name, we don't go public with that name anymore, but this network is important. So I hope all of you who support us that know that you might have been in the backdrop. This might not have been your issue. This may not have ever been what you ever thought your life would turn out to be, but it is now, and that's what happened to a lot of us. Is I know there's a lot of good professionals that did not want this to be their issue, but now that they're in it, they would never turn back. So it's commitment. You have to make a commitment, and